A suspect is in custody after an apparent assassination attempt on Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump while he was golfing on his course in West Palm Beach, Florida. Law enforcement officials say the gunman was in some bushes near the property line of the golf course when Secret Service agents who were clearing holes ahead of Trump spotted a rifle barrel in the bushes. The agents fired shots and the suspect fled in a car. A witness managed to take a photo of the car and license plate, and the suspect was later arrested. He had left behind a rifle and scope and a GoPro camera, indicating that he intended to film or live stream his actions. And of course, this comes 9 weeks after the Republican nominee for president survived an attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania, while speaking at a campaign rally. So for more on this and other international news, we're joined by our SABC News international editor, Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, good morning to you, and thanks for chatting to us. Obviously, this one taking us all again by surprise. I mean, there's a lot obviously happening around these presidential elections, but a second possible attempt at assassinating Donald Trump?
Yes, indeed, it's quite a strange phenomenon. You know that previously there was an assassination of a sitting president in that country. But looking at elections in recent times, there has never been such an incident where the candidate, who is almost the front runner, is targeted in terms of these actions. As you pointed out, this did happen in Pennsylvania, where he did survive. And now again here, when he was at the golf course, as you pointed out, that there was a person within the vicinity, and he had a gun similar to AK-47, and he also had a camera. And fortunately, because the security has been tightened around the former president since that Pennsylvania incident, the person, the advance team, in terms of when he is at the golf course, one of the Secret Service agents saw this barrel of a gun, and fortunately there was a retaliation from this Secret Service, and the person tried to flee the scene, but fortunately there was an eyewitness who was able to take the details of the car, and he was apprehended. But the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, and the Vice President, Kamala Harris, were both briefed about the incident, and Kamala Harris, another front runner, pointing out that there is no place for such actions or incidents in the United States of America. But of course, this has emboldened Donald Trump. You know that after the Pennsylvania incident, the support went up in terms of Donald Trump. But for me also, what I noted is that on Friday, the former First Lady, Melania Trump, issued a strong, long statement lamenting the fact that the Americans have forgotten what transpired to Donald Trump in Pennsylvania, and almost evoking the emotions. And there is no doubt that the second incident will again hype the emotions in terms of sympathy for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'm sure this one is going to be a big one through the day. But let's move on to other news. There's also the Pan-African Parliament that's sitting this morning. That's a big one. What can we look forward to on the agenda there?
Quite a big one, because as you know that those countries that have gone to elections will be presenting their representatives at the Pan-African Parliament, the swearing in of new members of the Pan-African Parliament. The focus will be on South Africa, because members of the Pan-African Parliament from South African Parliament will be sworn in. And I think to note there is that again the ANC has fielded a powerful, formidable senior personnel in terms of politicians who are going to represent the party. I'm talking about Mthweni Ntuli, who is the chief whip of the ANC, quite a very experienced person. He might be perhaps not so senior in age, but he has been the secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. He's currently the chief whip of the ANC. And one thing to note is that this will come handy for the African National Congress, because Mdumiseni Ntuli worked very closely with the former South African President Thabo Mbeki, and you know the former president perspective in relation with the commitment to the renaissance of Africa. And therefore, I think him being very close to Mbeki would come handy for the ANC in terms of pushing for the issues that are related to the continent. And perhaps when South Africa has got candidates on the African continent, around the world, they can lobby member states through the parliaments. You also have a situation where the EFF has downgraded. You know that the first person was Floyd Shivambu, who's now left the party, and later they had strengthened their presence at the Pan-African Parliament, and their presence was really felt when Julius Malema, the president of the Economic Freedom Fighter, was a member of Parliament. We saw the contribution and the push for the rotation of the leader of this Pan-African Parliament, where the rotation system was adopted, how vocal he was. On the other hand, you'll see new faces, the MK clearly sending Duzile, Zuma Sombudla, hardly known and also not having impact in Parliament. She has been in Parliament. We've never had even a word from her in terms of debate. Therefore, whether this she will show her strength maybe at the Pan-African Parliament, I don't know, but I doubt.
All right. Just also very quickly, I know that the president, our President Ramaphosa, is attending the UN General Assembly next week. You know, I suppose one looks to the priorities in this particular address. What do you think, very quickly, he will be focusing in on?
Well, clearly the president supports the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, in terms of the chief of the UN's view on the transformation of the financial system, looking at the economic challenges the world is facing, and these financial institutions such as the IMF, the World Bank, not really serving poorer countries. And I think he is going to carry that message, but also push for the transformation of the Security Council, as we know that there's now an understanding that Africa must have 2 permanent seats. But the question is whether you'll go for 2 countries, and that is going to evoke strong statements and views and tensions when you decide as a continent who will represent the continent in the Security Council. And of course, the issue of climate change. And that summit on the margins of the UN, the future summit, I think it is going to be a strong statement coming from South Africa in relation to how the world has evolved when you look at the war in Ukraine and the current challenge in the Middle East.
All right, we leave it there. Sophie, thank you. Thanks very much for talking to us. That's, of course, our SABC News international editor, Sophie Mokoena, just touching on some international stories that we are following.